Hello, welcome to another edition of Prove All Things. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, in our app, or on our television channels that we have on Roku or Apple TV, or perhaps you're watching this recorded or listening as a podcast. We thank you for joining us here on Prove All Things. I'm joined with co-host Mike James. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Jeff, good to see you today. I had a little trip out to Salt Lake City, Utah last Sabbath to speak to our group there for the first time. And I got to tell you, I hadn't been there in about 24 years. I had driven through about 24 years ago out to visit my brother in California on a long road trip. And it's just a beautiful city. I mean, there are mountains all around the city, and the city sits down in this valley, and I had forgotten how scenic it was there. So if anybody gets a chance to visit Salt Lake City, it's well worth the trip.
Yeah, I got a chance to look at a little bit of your sermon that you did there. That's now on our app, the Hebrew Roots sermon. So
yes,
that's at the church there, I guess, in Salt Lake City.
Yes, I did that, and it's on the website. Thank you.
Yeah. Today I'm having an interesting day. We found out this morning because we've applied to be foster parents, and and we've been waiting for a couple of weeks. We're ready for kids to come in. We're waiting a couple of weeks. They haven't sent us anybody, so we set up a call with the lady this morning to say, hey, what's going on? Is there something what do we need to do to find a place? And she's like, oh, we got somebody for you. This morning, she's like, good thing you set this up, because I was going to call you anyway, and that we're going to bringing a 5-year-old into our home today. So it's very exciting to welcome him to be a part of the family here for as long as that is, and we are excited to have him today. So hopefully I'm going to be focused on the program, but I may be thinking in the back of my mind about things I need to get done to be ready for this. So it's definitely an exciting thing.
Best wishes on that, Jeff. That's a great endeavor to take on something like that. And me and my wife had thought about that a number of years ago, and then she decided no. So we went through the whole counseling and taking classes and things like that, but we never pulled the trigger. So I hope everything goes well for you.
Yeah, because he does have some siblings. So, but we're getting him first, and then we'll find out from there after how things work out with that. So it's definitely exciting for us, and we definitely have a house that's big enough and ready for a kid, and a lot of fun things for him to do here. So I think will hopefully have a good adjustment. And let's pray for that out there that will happen.
I've been there, and you do have a house that's ready for kids. Yeah.
So definitely, because I'm a big kid at heart, so the house is going to definitely be a playground, which is probably fun for anyone. All right, so today I think we're definitely going to have an interesting program lined up, don't we?
Yes, we've got one of our regulars back. Bill, are you out there? Where's he at, Jeff?
He's one of our favorites we have out there, Bill Lusenheit. He makes some really fun comments throughout the weeks he's not here. How you doing, Bill?
Hey, great to be with you here on Prove All Things. Mike, Jeff, your mic is breaking in and out just a little bit, but it's a real joy to be with you here today on Prove All Things, and welcome to everybody in the audience today.
You're having a connection with us, I think, for some reason.
Am I breaking up with you?
I think I'm the one with the problem here, so I'm having internet problems.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hey, I wanted to address a topic. If you want me to just jump in here at this time.
Yes.
It's a leadership question, and it's about the proper care and feeding of your pastor. Right? Oftentimes we think of a minister as a consumable item, right? We don't think that ministers are human beings; they have needs too. And so Dr. Laura Schlesinger had the proper care and feeding of your husband as a book, and I thought it would be an interesting topic to address on this. Acts 20, verse 28 says this: keep watch over yourselves and all flock which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers. Be shepherds of the church of God, which he bought with his own blood. So this is a very, very tough responsibility, very high calling. And frankly, the things we'll be talking about today will apply to all forms of leadership, whether it's in the business world, administration world, family, and all of that. These things apply as well. So it's a leadership thing. And I'll just say one thing: leadership is a
Bill,
very lonely place.
Bill, both me and Mike, and I think the folks at home are hearing you come in are really staticky. Someone asked if maybe you can like restart and join us again. Would that be possible? See if we can fix that problem.
Let's do that.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, y'all out there, but we're gonna let Bill leave us just for just a little bit, and hopefully he can sign out, and we'll let him sign back in. So if you can do that, Bill, let's see. I'll turn you off. Just restart your browser, Bill, and see if that lets you log back in, and we can get a better connection because we're definitely getting some really distorted sound there.
Yeah, I'm getting that from you too.
Yes. So could you just close out the browser you're in and restart, and that might help us out. So, Mike, I'll ask you a question as what he's talking about. I guess the topic is praying for your pastor. Do you have any thoughts about this as we're waiting for him to return?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic because it's something that I guess elders don't bring up very much. The issues that we have, the issues we go through, we're trying to be impervious. We're above it all, but we're human like everybody else, Jeff. We've got our family problems, our issues, burnout. Various people are coming at us and throwing different questions at us, giving us different opinions. We're the ones that are getting all that most of the time because they think we can make a difference out there. Maybe we aren't aware of this, we aren't aware of that. And, I thank all the folks out there who provide their feedback, their comments. I learn a lot through that. But yeah, there are times when somebody's calling you at 3 o'clock in the morning and wants a counseling session, and you feel obligated to be there in their moment of trial. But you realize you got to wake up at 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning, and you aren't going to get all your sleep on that particular night. So yeah, I've experienced things like this during my time in ministry, and I think it's something we should address.
Oh yeah. So Bill is back. So see if we got a better connection with you.
Yeah, let's do this. How am I coming through now?
Is really good. Really good.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, like you were discussing, and let's just launch into some of the issues here. I got about 7 or 8 of these of what ministers face, and I think a lot of people don't realize what they face. But number one is family problems. Many in the ministry struggle with expectations from church members about their spouses, about their children, and they're really judged. I mean, it goes right down to what color socks you're wearing, right? And many ministers will struggle to find time with their own families, and many pastors' families struggle with what's called the glass house syndrome, right? You're being judged, you're being watched, constantly observed. Every little picky thing is going to be judged, and it's stressful, as I'm sure both of you will attest to.
Yeah, I get that, Bill. My family, my wife is not committed. She's not in the church per se. She's okay with all the beliefs I have, and she agrees with some of them, but she's not wholly committed to the Church of God International. She allows me to take my daughter to church, so I don't have any issues around that. But yeah, I think that having a wife who's in the church can make it much easier for an elder, especially. But there are times when I do get a little flack from her when I am traveling or going away to speak somewhere. I tried to get back from Salt Lake City the same evening. I had a late flight out on Saturday night, and again, that works out for my wife and kid to come back as early as possible from a trip. but sometimes you're hurried, and it's a pain to turn things around that quickly. Jeff, what do you think about that?
Well, I am definitely, because I was a pastor before my wife and then after my wife, and I can tell you that having a helper, a wife who's committed, has helped me in my ministry to probably be better at noticing things about myself and others that I probably wouldn't have noticed. And she's like, "Well, hey, maybe you should maybe go talk to so and so because there's a problem." I was like, "What?" It's like things you don't really notice that maybe a woman would notice, and it's good to have that completion of you, to have someone there who's help, who's looking out for you, and who's also under that same microscope, I guess, now, because people do look to you as like as a model family, but we're not. We're just like anybody else. We do our best, and we do our best to try to serve God. So yeah, that's, I would say, that's my what experience so far
Yeah,
with that.
it's a team thing, and I'm sure, Mike, even yourself, you have to have the confessor and somebody to talk to, because it's a stressful job. And in fact, I wanted to move on to the second point pastors face, and we'll address answers also later on. But it's stress. The pastor's life is one of emotional highs and lows. It includes critics and even groupie adoring fans, right? Which is a challenge in itself too, uh, because some people try to worship their pastor or emulate their pastor. I knew a pastor who loved to eat popcorn, and you know what happened? The entire congregation started eating popcorn all the time. Right? So that's kind of tough when you have a fan base, but also you're going to have your critics, and expectations from church members can oftentimes be unreasonable. The very nature of a pastor or an elder's call in ministry can lend itself to a lot of unending stress. So it's important to have exercise and vitamins and stay in shape and all that, because the amount of stress, literally even on your physical body, let alone your emotions, is high.
Yeah,
I
no
would.
doubt about it, Bill.
Mhm.
I agree with what you're saying there. I've had people call me on the phone, and they've got an angle on a certain scripture, or they see things a certain way that may be a little bit different from what the church is saying about it. And I want to listen. I want to understand where they're coming from. Sometimes they are calling me because they're in disagreement with another minister, and so you get a lot of this. And again, what I would say to folks is, I'm willing to listen to anything, and you can call me at any time. But if you've got an issue with a minister other than me, then call that minister and talk to them about that, or write an email to that other minister. Again, I'm willing to listen, and maybe I've got a closer relationship with this person, but we're all approachable. We're all willing to take some feedback and hear from the folks out there on what they have to say. But that would be one thing I would suggest to folks is, if you do have an issue, go ahead straight to that minister that you have the issue with. I'm willing to broach that subject if it's important to you, but I think it's better if you go directly to that other minister, that other elder. And let me just assure you that I know all the elders in CGI.
Mhm.
I don't know anyone who's not willing to listen, to hear what you got to say if you disagree with something, or you have a particular viewpoint you want to bring up to that particular person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me move this along, because we have several points. Depression. And in my last 47 years of Sabbatarian movement, I've had many different pastors, and I've known a number of them quite well. And I've heard many times that depression is a major problem in ministry, and it's often the secret problem. And the reason is, you are expected to always show up in a situation, whether it's a social situation or at church, and you have to be the positive, happy sunflower all the time, right? Always have that smile, always be positive, right? That's tough to
Mhm.
do. on a continuous basis. I'll tell you what, now, over the years, I've spoken to many different congregations myself. And there's been times even my wife and I, we're fighting in the car, going and having it out. And then the second we hit the parking lot, we pop out of there all suited up, looking good. And hi, everybody. We're the happy Christian couple. We're from Little House on the Prairie. It's the Ingalls family, right? And, 2 minutes before we were about ready to kill each other, right? I'm confessing here, but it's just tough. There's a high standard, and it can lead to depression because we all have sins. We all have our issues, and it is a very pervasive problem in the ministry is depression. And we need to be aware of that.
I'm gonna have to ask you, Bill, to try to sign out problem again. But while you're doing that, I want to, if you can sign out again, sign back in. I do want to address a little bit of what we're talking about here about, I guess, those expectations, and I think also the stress that comes in the ministry. And I think from what I've seen for a lot of the ministry is that stress, comes from sometimes those when, like as Mike's saying, somebody comes to you with someone else and says, "Hey, this minister's doing this and this and this, and you need to do something about it." Like, well, you need to go talk to them or something. So when they start putting you in the middle of things that you're not even need to be a part of, and that could become a stressful thing for a ministry. You're gonna need to know how to refer that to someone else, and then sometimes, I guess the stressful situations, like can be someone has a death in the family and they want you to perform a funeral, maybe somebody and and so you get kind of involved in their mourning as well, and problems that come to you, and you think about those things, and sometimes sometimes your own things that you're dealing with may keep you up at night. Sometimes something like that could keep a minister up at night, with helping folks. So it is definitely a challenge to be in the ministry, especially when you are helping folks and people are sometimes sharing their darkest secrets with you. And I don't ask for that, but people have done that. And and now you're like helping them with those things.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. I have heard some of those stories, the darkest secrets. I wasn't expecting it sometimes when I'm getting into a counseling session with someone, and then all of a sudden they drop this bombshell that was like, wow, that's really something. And again, I can't get into the details of some of what I've heard, but it runs the gamut. I mean, you'd be surprised at what we've heard, I think, as far as what's happened in some people's lives. And then when you have that knowledge, sometimes you feel like, hey, I gotta do this or I gotta do that in relation to what I've just heard. And that can sometimes bring you into the law and a number of other things that are of a concern because of what you have now heard from someone. So there's a lot of things that happen that I don't think everyone is aware of as to what we are getting involved in when we become, quote unquote, a minister. Mm-hmm. Bill, you got any thoughts about that?
And this will lead to a burnout because it's like being in a battle situation many, many times. And again, this applies to lots of forms of leadership. And my fourth point on what pastors are facing is this: the amount of hours that an elder and a pastor puts in can be onerous. A lot of people think pastors just goofing around all week playing golf, and that's rarely the case. Okay, and many people call upon the ministry in the bad and stressful times. Okay, that's when they call. It's like Pastor 911. Okay, and sickness, tragedy, death, job losses, marital problems, dysfunctional psychological issues, anger, marital issues. So it's not just the good stuff. Now there's the weddings and the baptisms and all that. That's good stuff, right? That's enjoyable. But really, the ministry has to get right into the pit, as you were saying, Mike, of human problems. And we're asking of you to be experts, and people call upon you to be a sheriff even, right? To police of every kind of problem imaginable. And I don't even know if a psychiatrist could be prepared for all the things that you're going to have to face. And so, again, that's a big problem in the ministry is burnout.
Well, I think actually sometimes, and a way to combat that is to know that we have limitations, and that if somebody comes to me, for marital counseling, and it's something really wild that I don't know anything to do about, I can always refer them to another minister who may have more experience, or to a professional counselor who's out there, because there are definitely professional counselors who are trained in these things and understand how to counsel. And so there's sometimes knowing our limitations and how much we can help others without, and not feel guilty if there's something. Sometimes there's nothing we can do, but just to be a to listen, or try to help them.
The
Anyone else.
I think the expectation once upon a time in the Church of God, I've been around this a long time, was that ministers were supermen. They were experts about everything. They would have an answer for everything. So I'm glad to hear there's more of a willingness to refer out to experts in fields of addiction, marital counseling, whatever it is, right? It's okay to rely on people that have the training and the expertise. It's nothing to take away from the minister. It is not realistic for us to expect ministers to be expert on all things, or even to know everything about the Bible. All right. You should be well versed, of course, but again, we have to have reasonable expectations of our pastors. Otherwise, they're going to feel very insufficient and burn out.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I've created are boundaries for myself as I've gotten into the ministry over a number of years, especially now that I'm full time in the ministry. Okay, when I had a full time job, those were boundaries there, and again, there were some times where I had to do the ministry thing, and the work thing was conflicting, and then the family things came in, so I had to create some boundaries, and I've done that now. I've got more duties working full time, but when you talk about counseling someone, I make sure that, hey, we're going to do this at this time of the week for this amount of time. Okay, I'm going to give you a half an hour. I'll give this person an hour. We're going to do it on this particular day, because if I don't do that, and I've got all these commitments coming at me, it's gonna wear me out. So I've got to create some boundaries, and I think this is important for leadership. This is important for anyone in their life, to create boundaries, to not have these expectations put upon you if it's going to ground you to a pulp. Okay, you can't do anything if you aren't healthy, if you aren't taking care of yourself, if you aren't mentally sharp, and you've got to know your limitations. And that goes for everyone in all aspects of life, especially when it comes to leadership. So that's something I would suggest to everyone out there, is create boundaries when you're helping people. And that's going to help you take care of yourself so you can help other people.
Right, indeed. Personal sins and addictions. All right. Ministers and elders are not immune to temptation. They're human like everyone else. Every type of human temptation is thrown at ministers. And in fact, I will say this, the devil, Satan himself, will work doubly hard on our leaders to succumb to the pulls of this world. And it's something that our leaders have to shoulder. I think it's important that people in the ministry realize their vulnerability in that regard. And it's important that ministers have people to counsel with. Now, I'm the president of a registered investment advisory firm, and registered investment advisors counsel with each other, all right? Because we shoulder a tremendous burden in people's lives of financial responsibility, and it can wear on you. Doctors need to counsel with other doctors, surgeons, and the like. So it's important that ministers realize that, hey, they are carnal as well, and they need counseling sometimes and friendship that they can trust, and that they need help in overcoming their own sins and problems in life as well.
I agree, Bill. We're human just like everybody else. We're not above everybody else. And I think people don't realize that. We've all got our different issues or problems or whatever it may be, and I think that just like the lay people within the congregation, we do need to talk to ourselves, to other elders, and even trusted people within the church. I talk to some people in my local group here when things are going on with my family. As I told you before, my wife's not in the church. Things happen with my family. My daughter's a teenager now, so things are happening with her that weren't happening a few years ago. And I need to vent a little bit. And I've got some people that I can talk to about that. I've got my mother living with me. I've got my mother-in-law living with me. Sometimes it gets to be a little much. And you've got to vent. You've got to have those outlets of people to talk to. Right on, man. I agree.
Right.
Hey, I want to share a book for any elders out there or anybody else who wants to read this book. It's a book. It's called Well Intentioned Dragons. It's written by Marshall Shelley. It's about ministering to problem people in the church. This for me is a book that I've read that really helps to understand like how people can mess up your time management, how people who are well intentioned in the church can be dragons. They can do things that are detrimental to the church. And so it's a book that gives you examples of where people did these things and maybe strategies for the ministry to like prevent these problems from in many cases, like people left the ministry because of the well intentioned dragons that they may find in their uh, congregations that are well intentioned, but they put pressures upon the ministry that the ministry never should have, or expectations.
Yeah, I think Ron Dart actually did a tape series on that, Jeff. And I heard it many years ago. I think I've still got the little cassette tapes of that series. And I think he based it somewhat on that book as he got into that particular subject. Yeah, dealing with difficult people is something that gets into. And there are different types of difficult people. I had to do a training session when I worked for the government where we were dealing with managers, and we were teaching them about different types of people and the problems associated with this type of a person. The person that complains all the time, the person that is pushing the envelope all the time. Again, this doesn't mean that the person is completely wrapped up in that personality, but it is something that you see within that particular personality. And how do you deal with that? There are definitely a number of good books out there for elders to read. I think that Mr. James Fire from Utah has put a good one in our little chat box on boundaries there. So someone might want to take that down. But yeah, Jeff, you're right on. That's a good book.
Mm-hmm. That's one I found at least helpful for me, too. Because again, I don't like stress, so I try to live as stress free as possible, and some of them things kind of help with that, to be able
Yeah.
to, how do I deal with these stressful things in a way that's not going to bring it all onto me, kind of
Yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
definitely helpful.
Yeah, what works for me is I exercise regularly, 5 or 6 days a week. I am
Mm-hmm.
exercising, and I got to tell everybody out there, it just releases the stress from me. If I don't do that, I start to feel funny. Okay, so that helps me deal with the stressors of being a minister. When I can get those endorphins released, I can start sweating. That takes the edge off of me. So I would suggest that also. Bill, I know you've gotten into exercise over the years.
Yeah.
Has that been something that's helped you?
I have a home gym, the whole shebang, right? Elliptical trainer, weights, the whole thing. And I put it out in the garage even, so it's nice and cold or hot or whatever else it is. Because my job is extremely stressful. And I get all kinds of different flack from people of all sorts because the markets are very erratic things. And so people are very impatient. And so I have to stay physically fit and stay on top of it and have release as well. I want to move this along. I see we're about the halfway point now. But financial problems. Okay, I've had clients that are ministers. Ministers don't make outrageous salaries in the churches of God. Okay, oftentimes you'll hear that. Oh, you guys are getting paid, right? They think you're making some huge amount of money, or
No.
you got a private jet or something like that, right? It's not like that. Okay, really, it's very humble for the amount of talent that is required for a minister. It would be a very high, six-figure type of pay, and most ministers are not at that level, right? If any. And so our local elders, they serve unpaid. All right, they don't even make a nickel. Financial struggles are common in our ministry. Oftentimes there's not Social Security or that type of a thing. I don't know how it works in Church of God International, but I know most of the churches of God do not even have the ministers in some sort of pension plan or even Social Security. So there's, as the ministry is aging, there's great concern about what am I going to do when I can't work anymore, or I die for my wife and all of that. And so there's a lot of stress and financial struggles in the ministry that people are not aware of. And I think it's very, very unfair when you hear that blowback of, well, you're paid, and you think that you're on some kind of a high lifestyle on their nickel. That's not true. It really is not generally true. We don't have any Joel Osteen type of guys or Creflo Dollars or any of those type of guys that are multimillionaires, due to their preaching. All right. Mm-hmm. Our guys are working hard. They're working long hours. They're not getting time and a half. Benefits are low. So that's a stress that ministers face.
Yeah. On that point, I've had issues around that because of the fact, I'm dealing with our work overseas. And again, in some of these countries, folks just don't have the opportunities that they have here. And so I've been requested to help folks in other countries, and I'll do what I can. But what has happened to me is, as I'm dealing with more countries and trying to get CGI into other countries, then I get more requests for assistance. And again, the church has a limited budget in what it can do overseas. So because I'm over the overseas ministries in Africa and Asia, I'm the go-to guy to be talked to. Hey, could you help us with this? Could you help us with that? And I've had to create some boundaries around it. Again, when I first got into this a few years ago, again, I wasn't working full-time for the church. But once I came in full-time, this has been one of the things put on my plate. And what I realized was, Mike, you can't help everyone. You've got to set limits. You've got to come down and just tell people the reality of things. And again, I had to create those boundaries, Bill. I was getting myself pulled left and right in assisting people. And again, I had to lay down the law in a sense and say, hey, this is what I can do, and I can't do this. And the same thing has happened inside the United States also, where around feast time, I get requests from people in the church. And again, I try to help them. I've got extra tithe money every year. I do. And I will help out. But then being at a church in Maryland for a while, and then helping out a church in New York, and then being involved with this church down here. And now I'm out in California. And I still have those connections back east. Those requests come to me, and I've got to tell you, it's been something I've had to work on, because I'm the type of person that wants to help you, but then I realize, hey, I've got to be able to help the people that I've already committed to, and I can't add additional people to this list right now. I just don't have that capability. Maybe in the future, when I start pulling from my work 401k plan, I will have that when I get Social Security. But right now, I'm getting some money from the church, and I also have my retirement. And again, that doesn't get into the numbers that you're talking about there, Bill, of these folks that we see on TV.
you know what? So this parlays into our last point as far as problems, and then we'll cover some of the answers to this, right? Or proactiveness. But time management is so important. And you need to be reading and studying 15 hours a week. I know in my business, I have to do that to stay on top of changes in the industry and things and staying up with the news of the financial industry and the like. It takes a lot of work. To be able to prepare good sermons, you have to be reading and thinking and going outside the box and having alone time and meditative time. But the expectations of pastors is often unrealistic. You're expected to attend meetings, to visit countless congregations, to prepare sermons that are interesting and provocative and engaging, and do that week after week after week. It's hard to do. Providing ongoing strategic leadership, conducting weddings, funerals, and be involved in outreach, right? So time management is very, very important. Warren Buffett just recently said something that I took note of. He's the head of one of the largest stock holdings in the world. He said, a big key to leadership is having the ability to say no. And more often than not, you need to say no. And so it's important to do that, to realize that you have to have that, to be able to manage time management. Very, very important topic for ministry indeed. And I'm sure I can see your heads nodding. You agree completely with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know before I was working for the church, and again, Mike before, Mike was working for the church. There's only a few of us in CGI at least who get paid to do this. There's so many out there who work full-time jobs and still have the responsibilities over congregations that maybe even bigger than the congregations that we see, and they have responsibilities and they have all this going on. So it can be a lot if you can't if you don't know how to manage your time or how to say no. Because again, number one is as a pastor is your time to God, time with God, your family. You have to put your family first. You can't neglect your family to go help others, but you do want to help others. It's maybe make a priorities of what's your priorities as a pastor, especially those who are not full time, who your time is so limited. And I remember when mine was limited, it was really it was a lot more difficult than it is now. I'll admit it. It was a lot more difficult when you're working a full time job and also acting as a pastor.
Yeah. Let's move along to some proactive things that we can do to help our pastors. Even those of you that are in the ministry, right, need to be praying for your other ministers as well, right? And reciprocate this way. But number one, we should be praying for wisdom for our pastor. If anything we've discussed is how important wisdom and judgment is in this. You got to have the wisdom of Solomon, right? And so leaders are often confronted with unbelievably challenging situations, decisions. We need God's wisdom to continue to be a leader in the Church of God that we've been called to be. So let's repeatedly bring that in prayer, because all pastors and leaders of all types need that on a continual basis.
Yes, Bill. Very good. Good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the other thing, let's move on to point 2 here. You guys need protection. You're driving all kinds of miles. I know the local pastor up here in Montana, he's driving about 35,000 miles a year. I mean, he's at truck driver level. I see that my frame froze here. Are you still able to hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of miles. Wear those seatbelts for sure. But I mean, there have been people in the ministry, in the Church of God, that have died in car accidents. Okay. So you need to be protected in that way. Pray for that. But you're going to be attacked in other different ways. Again, we talked about the temptations that are out there. You will be tempted again and again, from without, from within. The enemy is seeking to destroy. We need to ask for God's restraint, ask for guardian angels to protect our ministers, and realizing that, if anything, Satan wants to disillusion the brethren If he can bring down a pastor, there's no better way than doing that is to bring down a pastor. So they need protection. They need angelic help and the like. So pray for your pastor's protection.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a big point there, Bill. When you look at the Church of God movement over the last 20, 30 years, just the splits and the splinters and the breakoffs, and the fact there are so many independent groups out there today, again, that comes from leaders not being able to get along with other leaders and running off and doing their own thing. And again, I think unity is an important thing. Maybe God has allowed it to become what it has become, but we know for a fact from the Bible that in the kingdom we will all be unified. And I think we should always be working at unity. But we've seen leaders definitely split up over inconsequential things, over personality conflicts, and of course over some serious things where sin has occurred and churches have split because of that too. But again, that gets back at the leaders and the leadership, and a leadership problem within the church, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think another a good thing for pastors is that the Bible kind of teaches like a eldership that's a teamwork and a multiple elders. So if in different congregations in different cities, if we can have more than one elder, if we can have several elders who work together as a team who each have different gifts in different areas, that is the ideal situation. That's what we need people to step up if they feel the calling, if they feel that they have something they can give to help out in the things that can be, because we're all part of the priesthood, we're all part of this ministry, and we need to just realize that it's more than just one person. And I think that's what happens when people split, because they get all egotistical and they don't allow to train people underneath them. They want to keep it all power to themselves rather than share the responsibility, share the things that are there. That helping people is going to be a teamwork position, ideally.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm totally in agreement with that. Go ahead, Bill.
well, listen, I think some people think that, okay, I've given my donation and now my Christian duty is done. All right. And you can do the evangelism, and you can do the brotherly love, and you can do all these types of things for me. I kind of paid you off. All right. And now I can go do what I want. All right. So again, it's very important. Point three here I want to make is to be very mindful about a pastor's family. Okay, because they're attacked as well. They are going to be criticized and they're going to be bullied. If a pastor's daughter wears a skirt that's a little too short, I'm going to tell you what, there's going to be all kinds of gossip they got to deal with. Your families are criticized, bullied, and it's isolating and alone. Being a preacher's kid is a tough calling. It is a really, really tough calling, and they're being examined. So they need encouragement. They need prayer. And we need to lighten up a little bit. I'm not saying we're condoning sin, but we need to lighten up on people a bit and let them be human beings, especially kids and wives as well. All right, very tough. Your pastors' families need help and consideration.
Well put, well put. I've heard of stories where the children of elders or pastors did feel that extra pressure, that they were under the microscope, they were being observed all the time, and for some, it led to rejection of the church itself. So again, we've got to be mindful of children, and the fact that they haven't developed completely yet. They're still trying to figure things out. And truer words cannot be spoken, Bill. I really appreciate your comments there.
Indeed. The pastors have to withstand critics and bullies, And there's a lot of bullying goes on in the Christian community. It just does. You got people that are aggressive, who are trying to climb the ladder and that type of thing, and they'll find whatever they can. They'll pick on the color of your tie, right?
Yeah.
And critics and bullies can be very overt and aggressive. All right. And there's even a passive aggressive type of thing that goes on as well, right? They smile on your face and they're stabbing you in the back, and they're being political behind your back. All of this is painful. I had a pastor not too long ago confess to me that they have been betrayed at least 5 times now in the ministry. People they thought were their best friends, people that they loved and trusted and looked to, and they were betrayed. And betrayal is probably one of the toughest things to deal with. I know even the betrayal of our Worldwide Church of God denomination, the betrayal of the truth, was made me feel like I was having a nervous breakdown. I literally tears on my pillow, right? But there's a lot of betrayal that the pastors have to endure, all right? And again, be considerate of them, and that don't be part of the problem, number one. Number two, pray for them to have the strength to withstand this. In its own way, this is sort of learning how to love those that are bothering you, creating problems, is learning how to be like God, okay? So I'm just telling you guys that, hey, when these things do occur, and they will, all right, it is learning how to be like God and how to love the unlovable, okay? But it is a trial and something that ministers face on a regular basis, leaders of all types.
Yeah, I think the example of Jesus Christ is always there, that should be our goal. And if we've got the idea that, hey, I've got to be like Christ, I've got to deal with this situation as Christ would have dealt with this situation, rather than my human carnal nature coming out, that has served me well, Bill, when I've gotten some feedback that was totally out of bounds, totally ridiculous. I took it in stride. I smiled at some of this feedback I've received in the past and said, I appreciate your opinion. Thank you. And I had somebody come back at me. Oh, you're not going to get mad at me because you're the pastor, you're the elder. You're not allowed to get mad at me. Is that what's going? And I was like, wow, this is totally interesting that this person is trying to get a rise out of me. And because I'm not giving it back, that's upsetting them. You know? So I've seen some interesting things over the years.
Yeah, so you're not unique. All right, so join the club, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring this up, and I know both of you will agree with me on this. I've never talked to you about this, but I guarantee it's happened, and that is to guard and to pray against discouragement from comparison. All right. You're going to hear a continual chorus that Mr. Smith, the way he used to preach was so good. I wish you were as good as he was. We were a lot happier in the congregation back when Mr. Smith, I'm just pulling that name out of the thin air, by the way, to protect the innocent. But you're going to, other churches are growing, or other churches do it this way, or back when I was in Bangor, Maine, this is the way we used to do it at that church. Why don't we do that? Right? You're being told. If you could just really learn how to preach, and you know what? That message is painful.
Yeah.
You're basically saying you're not measuring up as a pastor or as an elder, and it's painful. And again, it's part of the discouragement thing. Let us avoid being part of that problem. It is very difficult. And maybe at times it's even said in a suggested way, they're trying to, improve things and all that, but it can be taken very, very personal. And if it's not done tactfully, I mean, it can be a dagger right to the heart. And let's try to avoid that.
You've hit on a great point there, Bill. Don't take things personally. For anybody out there who is an elder or a deacon or a leader within the church or outside of the church, don't take things personally. All right. If you can rise above that personal feeling, that emotion that you initially feel when you get some feedback that you think is negative, don't take it personally. And again, I don't take things personally. That has served me very well by not letting my personal feelings or emotions be impacted. Again, that's probably because of things that have occurred in my life that have got me to this point, that I feel I've got a extra layer on me that makes me kind of impervious to some of the things that I see people getting upset about. But again, everyone's different, and we've got to understand that about ourselves. But I can tell you, if you don't take it personally, it's going to be a lot easier to take your role as a pastor.
Yeah, Blake here, and Blake he has a unique position because he says people tell him that he's no Ron Dart, and Ron Dart definitely was a gifted leader, really great speaker, and Blake is also but there's differences that people see, and people will, especially if an organization is built upon someone. I can see how they can make those say those things not thinking how that may affect someone when you say that. I know that the first time that I was not in the ministry, but I was training for the ministry, and it was the first time I spoke like publicly as far as being recorded. Was up in Ohio because at that time we didn't webcast, but they recorded sermons in Ohio. So I went up in Ohio and I gave a message. I thought it was a good message. I think it wasn't still a good message, but it was the first time that someone from the office, they just forwarded me an email where somebody had a big complaint about that sermon. And and I felt really bad about that complaint. I was like, oh my goodness. Oh, I get up there and I was reading all these things and stuff. And, but that was, I think, may have been just inexperience, because now I get complaints. I like, whatever. I
Well,
understand your opinion. We all have opinions, and I thank you for it. But it's so
it's
you have to, yeah, go ahead.
I've known some gals that are in the escrow business, and escrow ladies take a ton of flack, right? And here's what you have to guard against in leadership. Yes, there's a place for the tough skin. All right, you've got to have a tough skin, but if you have to stay vulnerable, all right, there's a balance in there too. And you can't just say, well, I don't care about it anymore. Go ahead. I'm a target. Well, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. You got to stay kind and loving and vulnerable and approachable and all that too.
Yeah.
Now, I've known
Right.
people in the ministry. They've gotten tough. They've just gotten real tough, and they just kind of tune it out, and they become kind of immune. No, we have to leave our hearts on the line, and to have that balance, when to retract it, when to put it out there, and stay human, because we can't just become battle weary, veteran soldiers, been in the trenches for 15 years, and we just nothing bothers us anymore. We can't do that.
No, that's a great point, Bill.
Yeah,
that's a great point. I just want to interject. When you get that feedback, you're correct. You can't just have that thick skin to say I'm impervious to this. I try to hear any feedback I get and try to put myself in the other person's perspective, in their shoes, as to how are they seeing this and why are they saying that. I've gotten some feedback in the past. Oh, Mike James, he's too energized. He's too energetic. That's not real. That's not real. Okay, they say. And I'm like, okay. What I get from that is that, hey, people have all kinds of different personality quirks. And I grew up in a Greek American family. We were very emotional. We were very energetic. I was the quiet one in my family. Okay, so you haven't experienced my experience, so I can totally get that criticism. And I try to think about that. And hey, sometimes in a sermon, when you calm down a little bit, people pick up their ears, because you've changed the tone a little. So I take that criticism, whatever I hear, I try to take something from it, because it's real for that other person. And what can I learn from it? So that's a great point, Bill, that even if we have that thick skin, we still have to hear the other person as to where they are at, because it can help us grow even more.
Absolutely about that. Yeah, when people criticize that, sometimes they can be right. Sometimes they may be right, or there's something you can learn from them. There was and I just said and I try not to say that, because there was a sermon that I gave in one church, and this lady, she was really wonderful lady. She was head of like the spokesman's organization where people go and they speak and they do all these speaking things. And she's listening to me and she's like, "Well, yeah, I like your sermon, but you said like 185 times, and you said 380 or whatever." She gave me all these feedback, and I was like, "Wow, do I do that?" And so it's good if someone can give you that feedback of things that you may not tell when you're speaking, and you should appreciate it and not feel bad about it, but just take it as, hey, yeah, they're looking out for me. They're trying to help me do these things.
Yeah. Yes. I heard a great comment when I was training in the government. Feedback is a gift, they said. Feedback is a gift. You always look at it as a gift, even the negative feedback, because if you look at it carefully, you can find something to help you.
Right. Corporations spend millions of dollars for study groups and, feedback and that kind of a thing to try to improve the product. But again, it can be tough. I'll combine a couple of points here. I see we're moving to the top of the hour, so I'll move this along. But we got to pray against discouragement from members leaving. It's hard if you're in the ministry, if you got a true heart in the ministry and you're not a hireling, to not take it personally. And it's really tough when somebody leaves and quits going to church or gives up on God, and they say this. They say, "And it's your fault, Mr. Minister. It's because of you that I'm not coming to church anymore, or I don't even believe in God anymore because of you." And if you've been involved with this for any amount of time, you have heard that. And boy, that is just tough. And we have to also pray against discouragement from decline. We're getting older in the churches of God in North America anyway. It's good to see lots of younger people in the emerging markets and so forth. But in America, we're in decline. We're getting older. People are dying. You're seeing congregations shrink, right? That could be a very discouraging reality for a pastor, for elders. And so, again, not to take that personal, let's pray for that. Let's work against that as well. And again, we're moving to the top hour. But it also, additionally, disunity. Disunity is not people maybe leaving the faith, but they get off onto a doctrinal tangent, or just they want to follow somebody else and the like, right? And I had a minister tell me, "I wish I had every minute back that I spent refereeing church members in battles with one another." Satan, the enemy, he loves it when brethren fight one another and factionize and all that. I won't go into the debate, but I was in a congregation one time where it literally became Hatfields and McCoys, and people sat on different sides of the congregation. Half the congregation on one side, half on the other. Right? Battle lines have been drawn, right? So again, pray against that. The power of the Holy Spirit to dominate in our congregations, to dominate in our own lives, and to dominate in our personal relationships. That's important.
All right.
Thanks, Bill. Great points that you've made today. We could expand on a number of them. Gary's comment in the box here about pastor putting together a message. Again, it would be difficult to do a sermon every week and to do the research and put in the time. That's why I've got people in my group who can speak, and I will use them. You've got to delegate as an elder or a leader. One major thing about leadership people forget is leaders need to create new leaders. Okay?
Yes.
That's a big aspect of leadership, and leaders should never forget that. Once you become a leader, you think, "Oh, now I can call all the shots." No, it's about working together with a group of people and then bringing other people along who are going to replace you and take over and do the job that you've been doing.
Exactly. Good point, Mike. And again, really, your job is to create leaders in the kingdom, create people that can lead 10 cities. Really, in the end, I had a mentor and you never outgrow the need for a mentor. Ron Dart was my mentor, but I'll tell you, Blake, listen, don't be too hard on yourself. You're very impressive to me. All right. You're different than Ron, no doubt about that. But I love seeing you here on the show, and I love our friendship as well. But our job, and this was an old mentor that helped me a lot with this, is to replace ourselves, to get rid of ourselves, to delegate, to teach, and to get out of the way. And it doesn't mean any less of a status when you do that. In fact, you will be loved and respected even more. And so that is our job. No, it's not to be a dictator or to be the all-knowing. It is to create people that can replace you and get out of the way and so forth. And that, in a way, God does not need us either. He has given us the ability to participate in the miracle of the kingdom of God, both now and in the future.
All right.
Jesus left the earth and he gave it over to the disciples to keep it going. There's a reason for that,
Absolutely. Well, I thank you for joining us today, and I apologize to anyone out there if we had a little static come through. We'll try to figure out what that is. So I know we'll have complaints about that, and I love to let us know about when we have technical problems, because we're doing our best to fix them. It is definitely this is still a new frontier doing this live video shows every week from people all over the country, but we're doing it, and we're definitely going to keep doing that. And again, thank you, Bill, for joining us. And we thank everybody out there for their feedback, their comments, and definitely send your emails to Mike if you have any comments or complaints. Send them to Mike, and if you have anything good to say, you can just send them to me, to Jeff@cgi.org or whatever. But we definitely do appreciate all your feedback. So anything you want to close with, Bill, before we leave?
No, thank you for the opportunity, and really appreciate you guys for what you're doing. And I know your busy schedules and the like, but certainly my pleasure in being here with everyone. Enjoy the program and the opportunity to be able to express my views and talents as well. And really appreciate the team that's here.
Thanks, Bill. Right. You got a good comment there, Bill. They like your magnetic personality. How about that?
Yeah, I think that's the problem behind the problem with the noise there. I guess you're putting off waves.
Now, Superman is the man of steel. Does that make him a magnetic personality? I don't know.
All right. Well, goodbye, everyone. We'll see everyone next week.
Okay.